Hello, my name's Adam Hamdy, and you are watching the Crew Reviews.
Johnny boy, look who's back on the show, Mr. Adam Hamdy, all the way from, I don't know, where are you? Where are you at right now?
I'm in Mauritius, which is for those who don't know, it's a small island off the east coast of Africa in the Indian Ocean.
Sounds horrible. All right, well, let's just get right to it then. Well, it's good to see you again, pal. You've got some exciting stuff coming up here that we're going to talk about. And your newest novel, The Other Side of Night. This is your first Atria release in the United States, I believe.
Yep.
And it's a novel that is very difficult to talk about with not spoiling anything. So what have you come up with that you can talk about and tell our viewers what this the elevator pitch is on this story without spoiling it for us?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for having me back.
Yeah.
I obviously didn't offend you badly enough the first time around, so I'm going to try again tonight.
And you didn't learn your lesson with us, so here we go.
No, so I'm a sucker for punishment. So no, thank you very much. It's really nice to be back. And,
that's great.
Looking to you guys. And The Other Side of Night. It starts with a disgraced police officer, Harriet Kilty, who finds a message written in a book that she buys in a used bookstore, and the message says, "Help! He's trying to kill me." And she's got nothing else going on in her life, and she is a detective at heart. It's all she's really ever known. And she decides to kind of follow this thread, and she finds out that the last woman to borrow the book from the library has died, and that her name's Beth Asha, and that her husband David Asha has also died in suspicious / mysterious circumstances. And when Harry goes to kind of find out more about the family and what's happened, she discovers that their son Elliot has been placed in the care of a man called Ben Elmis, and he was somebody that she dated briefly a year previously, and she thought he might be the love of her life. And he kind of ended the relationship in a really, I believe the nomenclature of our time is he ghosted her. Kind of like, just cut it off, cut that relationship off. And so she's drawn into the investigation even more because she kind of wants to know why he did that. And she's also concerned with protecting this child, this young boy who's been left with somebody that she thinks may be a murderer. And that's kind of the premise for the book. And you're then drawn into this experience, I guess, is the only way to describe it. You kind of take on a journey.
That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. So so that's the setup.
Yeah. This is one of the most, I would say for me, this is one of the most intricately plotted books that I've read in a long time. And we all know some famous authors who, can pull off a pantser bestseller. But for the love of God, please tell me you outlined the living hell out of this manuscript before you started.
Yeah, definitely. I outline all of my books, but this one in particular, I've been working on for 5 years.
Oof.
And it's not so much I didn't know what was going to happen in the story. It was the plotting, it was how to structure it, and it was also points of view. I was missing a few points of view that I needed inspiration to find. And so it's been a long time gestating and, being put together. And when I actually came to write it, it was quite quick. I wrote it in the lockdown in 2020, over that sort of spring and summer. But I'd done so much preparatory work. I'd written probably 2/3 of a draft, 60,000 words that I'd thrown away years ago, a couple of screenplays, short stories. Like I'd done a lot of work trying to get it into shape. And then with this version, I did outline it. You know, it's kind of one of the things that I've learned from writing with James Patterson is outline. So you have a roadmap. You may deviate and go, you know, take a scenic route, but have a plot that's going to get you from point A to point B.
Yeah, well, I feel better because there's no way you could pants this type of novel.
Yeah.
There's no way.
I wouldn't even try. I wouldn't try. It is a structural. It's quite an intricate structure, but I think it's quite a simple read.
Oh yeah. Well, you made the impossible look easy, which really pisses us off as writers. So thank you very much for that.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I'll take that as praise.
Well, part of the intricate plotting included everything from book excerpts to court transcripts to, of course, the different points of view of the various characters. And you said it just a minute ago, but I actually felt the exact same way. This novel was a genuine experience, like few books I've ever read.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, did you experience it much the same way we did as readers? Did the story unfold in the same way in your head, or did you sort of assemble each piece individually and then stitch it together?
No, I experienced it as readers. Again, it's something I've really learned from working with Jim. You know, keep the reader front of mind at all times. Think about what it's like to experience your novel. Think about it from the reader's perspective. And I was always thinking about, well, okay, I know what I want to achieve in story terms. What's the most interesting way? If I was reading this book, how do I want to experience it? What would be the most interesting way for me to read this book? And so I was constantly thinking about, how do I present this in the way that's the most engaging and satisfying for the reader? And the other thing I was trying to do, and I don't know if I pulled this off or not, when I was a kid, you know, I'd go to the library a couple of times a week, get new books. And there was that wonder about reading, you know, there was that sense of, you know, even if you're not reading a magical book, the first time you read a Stephen King story, it's horrific and, you know, terrifying, but it's a magical experience because you're just blown away by it all. There's so much to take in and go on, you know, sort of, you know, have fun with. And I wanted to recreate that for adults. I wanted to have an experience that people could just walk away and go, wow, what the hell did I just read there? You know, you feel that it's something different. And part of that difference was immersing you in, it's a chronicle of somebody's life, you know, immersing you in that life. So you feel part of it. You feel their experiences, their journey. So yeah, it was reader front of mind, but also conscious that I wanted to give the reader some kind of different experience.
And different Absolutely. It was. On page 13, you know, your main character, Harry, she has this chance meeting in this conversation with this grieving widower, just kind of out of the blue. He asks her, he kind of poses this question to her: what would you give for that just one more moment with somebody who meant everything to you that is no longer with us? And as a reader, I couldn't help but think how, like, this wasn't the first thought you ever had. Like when you're writing this draft, like this might have been something that you had thought of before you even started writing this book. So I guess the question is was this passage, you know, that kind of kicks off this book something you'd thought about previously and kind of drove you to write this type of novel, or was it just kind of a starting point that you kind of picked out of the blue?
I mean, I have thought about these, you know, these things before. Like most people, I've lost people who are close to me, and you miss them, and you think about how nice it would be to have one more conversation, or you know, one more drink, a meal, whatever it is. But the book was actually inspired by a question that our son asked me when he was 8, and I can't, you know, talk about what the question was, but I can say that it was rooted in a very common childhood fear around that age of, you know, what happens to your parents? You know, if your parents die, you know, there's that sense of your parents suddenly being mortal, and you know, what happens to you as a child if you're left alone?
Yeah.
And a lot of kids have that fear. And so he asked this quite profound question when he was 8, and we were out walking in the Peak District, which is where most of the book is set. And I just thought, there's a story in there. That's just such an incredible emotional space to sort of explore as an author, and I started sort of noodling away on it straight away, and so that's where the idea came from. But these that particular question, what would you give for one more moment, I think it's something that I have thought about before, but it's also quite a common question. What would you, how much would you love to see some of the people that are gone from your life?
Yeah, I think that's a really human experience for most everybody. And of course, like taxpayers will often say, nothing is free. But because, that question really has such a powerful emotion behind it, we always grasp at it and say, of course I would. But there's a cost to something like that, right? To make that come to fruition. So is the idea of that cost central to how you unraveled the story's mystery towards the end of the novel?
Yeah, I think, we often don't think about the cost of our decisions. And it's interesting, I was talking to someone the other day and they sort of said, well, your books changed the way I perceive the rest of my life, and how I'm going to spend. No, wow. Honestly, yeah, it was quite an interesting.
Thanks.
It was quite an interesting conversation. He sort of broke down a couple of times and was near tears. It was quite a profound discussion that we had. But it's, we often don't think about the trade-offs that we make in life every single day. What they actually mean, what the consequences are going to be, I mean, at the most simple, basic level, you have people who smoke and they're not thinking about what's going to happen 15, 20, 30 years down the line and what that could lead to. We make all kinds of decisions and we don't think about the price. And, with something like this, with something quite as profound as this, you have to pay a high price for it. Right.
Well, we find that out.
That's all we can say.
Yes. Cut.
So earlier I talked about how we both talked about the plot construction, how intricate it is. But another thing I want to talk about was voice. I was truly humbled by your ability to create such distinctly different voices within the novel.
Yeah.
Writing it in the way you did, was it difficult to swim back and forth between the different voices, or did it so strongly flow from the characters that you almost did it subconsciously?
Yeah, I was talking to Stephen James about this on the Story Blender, and it was something he actually played a clip of something that I'd said a year ago, just over a year ago, which was that I was on a journey, and this was right about the time I started writing this book. And I said, what you spend ages trying to do as an author is to try and discover your own voice. You try and find your voice and, kind of make it as powerful as you can. And sort of just over a year ago, I said, no, it was longer than that. It must have been 2 years ago. And, but I'd said, I've got to the point where I want to try and lose my voice. As an author, I think you find your voice, you spend ages trying to find it, and then I think you try and lose it. Because the most powerful thing you could do is create a real experience for the reader. And the way you do that is to create realistic characters and character portrayals. And so with this, I really did try very hard to make the characters shine through and to give them a voice and a unique perspective. And I think because it was planned out and it was quite well structured in advance, it wasn't too difficult to switch between the two. And you have to kind of bear in mind, I'd been living with them in my head in one form or another for sort of 5 years.
Wow.
So I knew them. They were like real people. So it was, and actually one of the things that I've learned from this book is the importance of point of view and how your point of view can really help you give clear delineation of character, how you can maintain mystery without concealment. In other words, you're not tricking or bamboozling the reader. You're using point of view, a natural point of view, to help build the mystery and sustain it for however long it naturally needs to be sustained.
Yeah,
that's actually a great point.
Yeah.
Well, and cut to your point, I've read some of your other work, Black 13, sitting on my shelf here, signed copy, by the way. And this was obviously a huge departure, not just in plot and story type, but it really was a different voice and different voices. so I was really kind of thinking about that actual fact about your voice, because I guess your voice is the fact that you're telling is just the uniqueness of telling a story that I haven't heard before in a way I hadn't heard. And that essentially is your personal voice in a way. But it was fascinating to me, because I always analyze the stuff that, you know, we read from different writers, and when it's in different genres, and I don't know that I could say it was Adam Hamdy. I just know that it was so unique. And I guess that's your voice. Your voice is to tell something in a new way, in you know, a different type of story in a new way. And anyway, I'm rambling, but it was a very fascinating thing after I read the book to kind of like evaluate where Adam Hamdy is in this book.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm the same. I try and study things and pull things apart, and, you know, I enjoy the things that I read or watch, you know, for screen. But I always try and understand what makes them work, what doesn't work. How have they done that? How have they made me feel that? You know, how, you know, kind of, and it's encouraging to hear that, you know, because I am trying to, particularly with this book, trying to sort of, I don't know, give readers a new experience, to give them a new perspective on things, and also kind of try and step back as the author. I don't need the reader to know who I am or what I think, or, you know, if I'm smart, if I'm dumb. It doesn't, like, I just want to let the book speak for itself. So it's encouraging to hear you say that.
Yeah. Well, your description is almost like kids who can't wait to grow up. And then when we grow up, we would love to go back and be kids again. Like you're almost like trying to give it away, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, if only, that'd be fun.
Right. We're talking about opportunity costs, about going back.
Yeah. Imagine going back with all the knowledge that you have now.
I imagine daily when my knees worked.
I'd be a dangerous man, I'll tell you that much.
It was dangerous then too, people, just so you know.
Yeah, you'd have to be, well, you'd be a dangerous kid to start off with.
Yeah. I could do it with that. I got to say, it's really difficult talking about the last quarter of your book without giving spoilers away.
Yeah, no, I know.
For me, the jaw-dropping moment felt like my reaction to the movie Sixth Sense.
Right.
Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when I'm hitting those last pages, and I had the same exact visceral experience that I had when I watched that movie, and then everything comes together. Maybe I had a few expletives come out of my mouth both times too. And most reviews, well, not most, but I'd say a lot of reviews have kind of referenced that same sort of reaction. So was that reaction a happy outcome, or was that an intended result for you?
No, that was an intended result. That the scene that you're talking about was in the short story that initially kicked this all off. And I wrote a 6,000 word short story, and it was that kind of sequence at the end of the novel.
Wow.
And it was in there right from the beginning. And it was that kind of emotional kick that made me think, actually, I need to explore this more. It needs to have more of a build up. You need to see more of the implications and the ramifications and everything. And so that was always there. That was the heart of it right from the beginning. And so I wrote that end first. And that exists as a short story. I think a few of the character names are different, but you know, everything that's in there is in the book as it stands at the moment. Wow.
Fascinating. I mean, yeah.
In the special edition of the 10-year anniversary or 20-year anniversary, whatever, you should publish the short story.
Yeah, we want to see that.
Yeah.
David Brown's
I've got
notes right now.
Yeah, I've got a short story. I have a 25-page, I think, short movie script I wrote. We're going to try and make it as a short film, then a feature script, another feature script, and as I said, 60,000 word novel. I'd written it out. It was very police procedural. It all took place it was all third person. It all took place from Harry's perspective.
Okay.
It felt quite flat. It didn't give you that, you know, sort of magical mystery tour.
I'm glad it felt flat, because otherwise we wouldn't have this.
Yeah, this is far from a procedural.
And I was somewhat being facetious, but not really, about the 10-year anniversary. This is the kind of book to me that does have, like, oh, hey, 10 years ago, this, you know, my book came out, and it's a very, very special book. And
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. Yeah, I hope so. I hope people, respond to it. And for me, I think it's a kind of book where you're going to get what you want out of it. It's that kind of book where it's quite short, but there's so much in there that you're going to take from it what you need at that point in life. And it's interesting. I'm starting to get messages from people who are reading it for the second time. And it's just interesting seeing what they're saying about the fact that, they know obviously what the kind of big twists are.
Yeah.
But the emotional impact still stands. And in some ways it's heightened because they know what's coming. And so you start to see the significance. And the book is actually full of secret messages, anagrams, codes. The poems have clues in them about things. I mean, there's just a lot in there that I think people will have fun pulling apart. So yeah, I hope it's around in 10 years time. I hope I'm around in 10 years time to enjoy that.
Well, to your point about people taking different things out of it or different things hitting them, I just turned 52 in May. Well, I guess it's not just, it's been a few months.
You're almost 53 now.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Thoughts about mortality, legacy, meaning, bigger meanings, et cetera, are becoming more prevalent and more frequent in my life. And I know this story began with a question from your son, Elliot, as you mentioned earlier. But had you been fixated on any of these questions, the big questions prior to that, and that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back to get you going?
I mean, I did. My first degree was in law, and then after I finished that, I did a philosophy degree, and that was purely because I wanted to see what the great thinkers of our times, throughout history, had to say on different topics. I wanted to see where the collective sum of human knowledge came to sort of rest on the nature of self, religion, faith, science, and mortality, and how people conceptualize death through the ages. And philosophy seems a really good place to kind of get a general education that, chronicles that human journey. And also my father passed away very suddenly when I was 28. And that kind of has hung in, my mind for a long time. And so it is something that I'm conscious of. And maybe actually, and this is where the person that I was talking to a couple of weeks ago was sort of saying it's made him more conscious of of actually the finite nature of life. We all behave as though we're immortal. We go out and we, I used to ride one of the fastest motorbikes in the world, never really thought about crashing or what would happen, rock climb, ski, we go out and do crazy things. And it's not that you don't want to take risks in life, but actually you're kind of spending credits. There's a movie, I don't know if you've seen it, In Time, with the Justin Timberlake and I can't remember who the actress is in it, but it's basically about the fact that there's no money anymore. You earn life, you earn years and minutes and days.
Wow.
And that's the currency, that's the trade. And it's a Hollywood kind of riff on that idea, but it's good. And so it's this idea that time is a finite commodity, and how do you spend it? What do you do with your time? And I don't think as a species we think enough about that. We give it away really freely, we waste it, I am quite conscious of what we do. And that's actually one of the reasons I wrote this book, is because I love writing thrillers, and I love entertaining people and keeping them on the edge of their seat, but I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that would kind of last and stay with people. And so this in itself is an expression of this conception that we are sort of fragile people and we don't last forever.
Well, you can entertain, right? You can blow up things, you can do shoot and run and all that sort of stuff, but when you confront people with the meaning of things and the meaning in their life, the impact can be different for everybody. Some people might read this book and say, oh, wow, that was great. And some people might just break down, and because it really impacted what they're already worried about or thinking about in their own lives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I mean, that's exactly it. And the reactions that I've had have been, ranging from, oh, that's an interesting sort of procedural. A few people have said, oh, it's quite a slow book to get going. And then most people have said, wow, my mind was blown. It made me cry. It changed the way I look at things. The number of people who've actually written to me and said, this book has changed me. Okay, that's really great.
Is that a good
changed
thing?
you for the better, right? I hope it hasn't hulked you or Wolverine you or something. But it's like I said, I think people will take out of this book what they want and need at that particular point in time. There's space there for you to find the answers that you are looking for. It doesn't give you any answers. It just asks lots of questions.
Yeah. Or just forces you to think about things that you've had thought about in the past, maybe in a different way.
Yeah.
And like Sean was saying, this is very different writing in terms of what would be kind of a purely definable genre that, we've known you to write in the past. And this is your first book as kind of American debut. Not a lot of us know your writing and have read you before, but this is going to be a much wider audience being an American debut. So my impression is this is truly a standalone novel. I mean, that was my impression of this. And so were you conscious of how a newer and a more expanded American market would discover you as an author and how they might define you as a specific type of author or writer?
Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that we've had mainly with my agent. And what I originally did, and this is either brave or stupid. We originally went out. Yeah, it's stupid. We went out on submission under a pseudonym.
No.
So we went out under the David Asha pseudonym. So David Asha, for people who haven't read the book, is the character framing the book and is the missing father. And you don't know, is he a ghost? What's happened to him?
Right.
And he frames the book with the opening preface and so it was sent out as a genuine debut written by David Asha. And I thought it would be quite fun to see if it's blur the line between fact and fiction. Would people figure out, at what point would you figure out that actually this is a fictional book? And so it really surprised me when we got the offers that the publishers didn't want to go with the pseudonym, because I thought, well, I'm quite well known for writing high octane, thoughtful, thought-provoking, but high octane adrenaline junkie thrillers.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised when they said, let's put it out under your name. Because we could have picked any pseudonym, we could have used David Asher, we could have done, anything else. I'm glad that that they asked to use my real name, because I feel like hopefully what will happen in time. So to begin with, you might think, oh, this is a bit weird. He's got kind of two different libraries, two different styles. But hopefully what will happen in time is I'll add to this side of things.
Yeah.
And you'll kind of see across the spread that, the main objective, first of all, is to entertain, to give you an experience, to give you some kind of ride, a thrill, whatever it is. But actually, the other thing is to make you think, is to kind of like just put a lens on the world and say, oh, hold on, have you thought about this? Have you looked at this? Have a look through this lens and see what you think. And so I'm hoping that it will all, looking back, kind of coalesce into a sane and sensible body of work. But at the moment,
the push is like series. I mean, they want to know who you are and they want to buy this book. And so for me, it's really refreshing that you're going to have a ton of success with this, as you have with your other books. And it's like Adam Hamdy is like the guy that says it's okay to write different things, it's okay, because it's more refreshing, I think, for authors that are not churning out the 25th version of, X and Y.
I mean, go ahead, Sean.
No, we're here to listen from you.
Oh, right. No, I mean, it's a risk. Will people accept it? Will will they come with you? And what happens to new readers who then go back and read your other stuff? What do they think of that? How does that fit in? But like I say, I think over time it will all kind of make sense. And my my next book that I've just finished is a standalone. It's not quite as emotionally challenging as this one, sort of from a structural and point of view perspective, but it's a challenging and thought-provoking read, and it fits more with this kind of book. And I've got another one sort of plotted in outline that's very much like The Other Side of Night, and is just gonna explode minds again, and is a real kind of tearjerker. And so, I hope that readers will kind of respond, and that I'll be given the opportunity, because at the end of the day, it's a business for publishers. If you don't hold up your end of the bargain and get readers and entertain readers and stuff, they're not going to keep giving you books, right?
But if you want lasting content that has an impact, I think you have to take those risks. And I think you're going to be one of those people that shows that it's okay. It's okay to it's a risk, but at the same token, it's like, well, I could write 20 books and it's like, I made a chunk of money, but is it going to be lasting? And I think The Other Side of Night's going to be one of those books that 10 years from now, people are still going to want to go out and read if they haven't read it already.
I hope so. That's very kind of you to say. There's the alternate future, which is when you guys rock up at the Sheraton in 5 years' time, and you're walking past this old hobo-looking guy.
I'm not talking to any strangers anymore.
And he's gonna be there, and you go, "Hey, you look familiar. Hey, you look like Adam. What the hell happened to you? You wrote this book too much."
He's selling T-shirts on a beach somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I hope your reality is what happens, but there is an alternate reality where the risk just doesn't pay off. So,
well, as you were talking, I was reminded way back in '95. I went to my first writers conference, and David Morrell was the keynote speaker. And at one of his breakout sessions, he was talking about being trapped by genre, and how he was, at that time, he was planning a horror book, which he wrote. It was, I wouldn't call it true horror, but it was definitely had horror elements, because he wanted to break out of genre. And if you look at from that point in time, he started to write in a lot of different, he did some period pieces, period detective stuff that was really interesting. He's been working on a Western, and that's always kind of how, that for me as a creator, that's how I looked at writing, how it should be. It's like, again, I love series as much as the next guy, but you shouldn't be bound, if you are a talented storyteller, to put you in a box and say, okay, this is where you must stay, to me is really short-circuiting some great stories that we would otherwise have from these talented wordsmiths, and people who can string a story together. So I'm always, the business side and the art side are always, there's always a tug of war there, but I really do hope that the more successes there are with the artistic sort of flourishes that then, are successful on the business side, the less constrained the business side will feel, trying to put these boxes on these authors. So
I really hope so. I really hope so. And not just for me, but for exactly the reason that you were talking about, was that we're missing out on things. If you say to someone, well, you can't do that because you're the thriller guy, or you can't do that because you're the romance guy, or whatever it is, if you constrain people in that way, you are just robbing the world of potentially, wonderful stories. And it never really occurred to me. I got published, and I never did enough analysis of the business, which is really stupid, because that's what I used to do in my career, was analyze.
That's why you left it, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, traumatized. But it is amazing that the moment you have a success of any kind, you are put in that box, and they just want more of that. And you have to get really big, or take a real gamble, which is what I've done here, and say, I want to do something different. I want to say something different and see. And it was really interesting. Somebody within the industry said to me, "Oh, that's really cool. You can write a different style. You've shown it. You've demonstrated it. Now you've given evidence." Like, well, I could always write it. I just never had the opportunity. And actually,
I didn't want to believe it.
yeah, I did this one off my own bat. And what's interesting, I'd love to do like a series of short films of authors living their daily life in the genre that they write, like thriller authors. I'm gonna go and buy a cup of coffee, get in the car, and romance authors, everything's amazing.
Oh my gosh, it's like brilliant.
You don't
awesome.
ever
That's
you
awesome.
don't ever, we're rounded people. There'll be times you'll be incredibly sad, you'll be incredibly thoughtful, you'll be philosophical, you'll be romantic, we're rounded people. No one ever lives their genre. You're kind of expected to write that genre and do that forever.
My gosh, my mind's going to be in that mode for a while now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a Nabum will produce it.
Here comes 5 scripts this afternoon.
By the way, if you would come out as David Asha, would you be in profile with like a voice changer and as you answer my questions?
I've always, it always makes me. There's an author that I know who writes as a pseudonym, but he's openly that pseudonym, and everyone at festivals knows that it's him, and he does events and he does podcasts and everything as him, but under the name of the pseudonym, and it's just all so confusing.
He just pretends like it's not really him. Yeah,
like it's all very weird. It's like, you just let him write under his own name. Everyone knows now, so just let him write under his own name.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done if they'd gone with David Asha. Hired an actor, maybe.
That'd be fun.
Oh my gosh, that'd been great. So, one quick question: The Other Side of Night. Maybe it's not a quick question. The Other Side of Night is a book that will remain with readers and kind of infest their mind, I think, and I don't mean that in a negative way, for a while. But beyond the universal critical acclaim that we're seeing, and beyond any tangible rewards of success, how has writing this particular story changed Adam Hamdy?
I mean, that's a really good question. It's had a lot of impact on what. So I think the biggest thing is probably losing my voice. It's like giving the book over to. So the next book that I've written is pretty much all told in the first person by the central character, and so it's structurally quite simple, but plotted it's quite intricate. But it's that idea of losing your voice to give the reader an all-consuming experience. I've learned to step back as the author, let the characters speak, let the characters have, and it's almost like it's like that sort of primary, secondary source thing that you get taught in school about history. It's always more powerful to read a newspaper account of something that was happening at the time, and you might get the reflection and perspective in the secondary source that looks at that later on, but that immediacy of what it was like to be in that world you get from those primary sources. And so I've kind of thought, well, if you have the opportunity to use primary sources, direct voices from characters, there's court transcripts, as you say, letters, journal entries, all that sort of thing in this book. I think it gives you that richer experience because you're giving the characters the agency and the voice then, and stepping back as the author. The other thing that I've learned, and it really is crucially important, and it ties in a bit with writing genre, is to have fun. Part of being a creative is to test yourself, to experiment, to have fun. And even if it's within genre, push yourself that little bit harder to try something different, to explore and experiment in a different way. And at the end of the day, you start writing. All of us start writing because we love it. We feel we have to do it. There's some, story we have to tell, some character we have to explore. There's something. It's not driven by money. It's not driven by market. A lot of the time, you're not even thinking about whether it's going to have readers. You just have to tell this story. And so it's reconnecting with that fun side of things, and making sure you kind of never lose sight of that is another thing that I've really learned from this book.
Don't lose your childhood while you're being an adult.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And storytellers need to have that sense of wonder, whether it's about the world or the characters or whatever it is. You need that sense of wonder. And it doesn't mean that everything's kind of doughy-eyed, and it can be wonder within a thriller. I mean, like Jack Carr's books really are wonderful at one level because they're just so well executed. You know, they kind of propel you into this world with these characters. And so it is that, yeah, those are the kind of things that I've taken away from this.
Well, thank you, philosopher. We appreciate that.
Let's bring it lowbrow now.
Yeah. So you have once again survived the main portion, but here we go.
Okay.
Now that you've written this amazing book, we're going to try and ruin your career in 6 easy steps. So
great. Let's go for it.
All right. So I'm up. Oh, yeah. So my first question is cryopeptide. I never saw that in any of my medical literature. So I would like to know if you've trademarked that, or should I jump out there and get that?
I think you should jump on the bandwagon. Yeah, I mean, you know, you're allowed some license with a book like this. So, I mean, obviously peptides are a big thing.
Sure.
But cryopeptides.
Yeah, it was like cryo, interesting.
My own little input. Listen, you want to make something sound fancy. We're not going to talk about the context in which this appears, but if you want to make it sound fancy, cryo is a good word to stick in front of anything. Like cryo Mackie D's. I'm going to have a cryo Mackie D's. Wow, that sounds like pretty out of this world, right? You know,
cryo bourbons. Yes, that's right.
There you go, cryo bourbons. I mean, there's a whole range of cryo products here that we can bring to
get my lawyers on this right away. Okay. And I'm sure you've thought of this, and I know I was thinking halfway through this book, what actress plays Harriet in the movie adaptation of this?
Ooh, that's a really interesting question. I mean, I'm always a big fan of Emily Blunt. I love Emily Blunt.
I could see that.
Yeah, so I think she does kind of haunted, you know, kind of tough but vulnerable.
Right,
she does it so well. So yeah, I could see that.
Her sister's a lit agent, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. Felicity Blunt. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's get on it, people.
Let's get it on. Yeah. Let's do it.
All right.
Your people call my people.
Yeah. Exactly.
And we'll just talk about things.
Your people is you.
Emily Blunt. Yeah.
We're gonna try to tie it in, so she has to be in one of the short films.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Good idea.
Have you ever seen Bowfinger? The Steve Martin, Eddie Murphy film. Yeah, we're just gonna have phone calls with the cord cut, right?
So we talked about this, and readers are going to ponder the question: what would you give, right, in the other side of night? Your maybe your less sophisticated American audience that you're going to be collecting now would like to know, what would Adam Hamdy do for a Klondike bar?
What do you want me to do for your Klondike bar? You know, like
that's an open question. I'm not sure we want that on Twitter.
You're asking the wrong guy. Please don't ask.
I mean, I think I would climb any mountain for a Klondike bar.
All right.
Awesome. Climb every mountain.
I like mountain climbing.
Sound of music tie-in.
Yeah.
Climb every mountain. Here it comes. Okay, so a lot of energy from our last lightning round was devoted to peculiar British foods, or a peculiar British.
Well known.
So now that
no,
we're gonna put that in the past.
Not the spotted dick.
No, that's in the past. I didn't even mention it by name.
We're a more sophisticated show now.
Now that you and your family.
This is a more sophisticated book. I'm supposed to be highbrow.
Exactly. That's why I didn't mention
finger as I drink the tea.
Yeah,
that's why I said peculiar foods. I did not use it by name.
Okay.
So now that you and your family are settled on Mauritius, what strange food is the spotted dick of the island?
He had to go blue.
Yeah. I
my God.
He mentioned it first, so.
Yeah, spotted dick of the island. There's nothing that's sort of comparable. I don't think that I've encountered yet. There's ferrata, which are kind of rolled vegan curry breads. There's a mean frites, which is a sort of chop suey noodles. There's nothing. Oh, hold on. There are these crusty balls.
All right. See,
that's it, folks. Thanks for joining the crew reviews.
Have a winner.
Their proper name is Puri. They're these. Oh God. They are crusty balls.
Yes.
And when you go and ask for them from the stand, they crack them. And then
Cracking
they
balls.
fill them They fill them with soft fillings.
Okay.
All right. We have a winner. Okay, I'm not even going to comment. I'm just going to let the audience.
I have so many thoughts right
highbrow
now.
That's
okay.
highbrow.
Now I'll steer you away from that.
Yeah.
So, what besides certain people do you miss from the UK?
I miss the countryside. I loved walking in the countryside in Shropshire, the Roaches, the Peak District. The rock climbing there was brilliant. There are some foods that you can't readily get over here, restaurants, but most stuff's available here actually because it's a big tourist destination, so they cater for a kind of global clientele. And I mean, there's a lot of things I don't miss, but that's probably apart from obviously people, friends, family, colleagues. I haven't seen a lot of the writers that I would bump into on the circuit for quite a while. Only one has so far come out here to visit, so that's kind of a loss. But apart from that, there's so much here. It's such a lovely place. It's hard to kind of compare the two.
Well, it's such an interesting geographical intersection because you have Europe, Africa, and Asia are all relatively, close. Probably one of the few places they're that close together.
It is, to me, the easiest way to describe it is Mos Eisley Cantina. It's that kind of nexus. Yeah, everyone gets that, right?
So New Orleans is a country or is an island?
Yeah, it's the whole. It's 60 miles north to south, and at its widest point, it's about 40 miles across. And you have a diversity of climates here you would not believe. So you'll be on the beach, in tropical heat, swimming in the ocean, and up in the mountains, it's like being in Scotland. It's chilly, it's raining, it's, it feels like a temperate zone. The people are a mix of sort of Indian heritage, African, French, English. I mean, it is just such a mix. The official language is English. Everyone speaks French or Creole. It's like every religion is represented, and it all just seems to work. It's a real, that's kind awesome. Of melting pot of cultures and religions, and it seems to function.
Well, when you don't pit, different groups of people against each other for various reasons, it works.
Yeah, we get along. We're all human, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm breaking some rule by actually asking legitimate questions at this point. But what was the most? So one of the books that you cite is "Your Brain is a Time Machine." What was the most mind-blowing insight that you got from reading that book? If you could
that book is full of mind-blowing insights. It's a book by Dean Buonamano, who is just an amazing scientist. And just from cover to cover, that book is just full of insights that will blow your mind. So I'll give you an example. There is a delay built into keyboards, for computer keyboards. There's a small delay built into them. Because if that delay didn't exist, it would look as though the letter had appeared before you typed it. Because
the processing speed,
the processing speed of your brain,
right?
There's a slight delay in how you see things and how you hear things and how fast your processor works, and everyone's slightly different. So there are athletes who can register events happening faster than the disqualification time for the Olympic starting, right? So that must be really difficult because something has happened, but you also know you'll be disqualified if you react to that thing happening at your natural reaction speed. So you have to kind of guess at a delay. But anyway, with the keyboard, if this delay wasn't put in, you would see the letter before you perceived yourself typing it. So there's an experiment.
That would freak me out.
And you can say,
there's an experiment that Dean talks about where he goes to somebody who has taken the delay off the keyboard, and he says it's the weirdest thing ever that you see the letter appear before you type it. So you think it's predicted what you've done.
It's like a
but
ghost.
You've actually done it. It's just the book is full of mind-blowing stuff like that. It's well worth a read.
I wish I had one of those keyboards to swap out as a practical joke with people.
Wouldn't it be so easy, right? It's like, this book's writing itself.
Exactly. That's funny. That's crazy.
Well, Adam, congratulations. This was a mind-blowing adventure, and it does, like all the people who have said, reviewers and have said, this sticks with you long after you shut the cover, because I think it has different meaning for different people for the same reasons. Everybody that reads this is going to have some sort of visceral reaction, and not just like this was an enjoyable read. I liked it. It's going to have much more impact than that. And so congratulations on this. This was really a wonderful book.
Here. And what I will say is that it is the book that engaged me most emotionally and intellectually at the same time in recent memory. I mean, I don't remember being this engaged emotionally and intellectually in a book in a very long time. And it's just it's a triumph, man. It's great.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank you very much, guys. Mike and Sean, that's really very lovely to hear. That's the best kind of response I could hope for as an author. So it's really kind of you to say that. And it's been great talking to you guys both again. Thank you for having me back, Well,
good to see that philosophy class has actually paid off this time.
What will you do with that?
What kind of degree?
For all of the highbrow stuff we've talked about, I know you're just going to cut a clip with me saying crusty balls, and that's going to be the trailer.
Well, now I have to choose between that one and the one previously.
No, but, oh my gosh, that was
he
so
knows his
funny.
audience.
That was so funny to watch the realization come across your face that, oh my gosh, there is the perfect equivalent of it. Do I want to?
And the moral dilemma of actually admitting it.
But I tell you, I hope this sells. I hope this sells millions of copies, because I'm going to be recommending it for a long, long time. And congratulations again, my friend.
Yeah, that's very kind of you.
It's great seeing you, pal.
Really kind of. Lovely to see you too. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Take care.
Go, Shawnee boy. We had Adam Hamdy and The Other Side of Night on the show today, and as we expressed for the past hour or whatever. Holy crap, people. Anybody who claims that they saw this coming is a complete, absolute liar. And I call you out and call BS right off the get-go. This is an emotional response book that has some deep meaning, but it's entertaining. It's not like some sort of, book that you got to read in philosophy class. So for me, this is probably one of the more important books written this year in the genre that for me is it definitely in my wheelhouse in terms of readership. So congratulations, Adam, on that.
100%.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris can't be here. He's off jet setting, as he always does, because he lives the high life.
He does.
And thanks for watching, folks. And see us next time on the Crew Reviews. And it's a 1, 2, and outie.
There are these crusty balls.
All right. See,
that's it, folks. Thanks for joining the Crew Reviews.